This is Now Showing.
Good evening and welcome to Now Showing.
I'm Beau.
I'm Ben, and this is the podcast where we discuss movies.
Now, this week is the Steven Spielberg release, Bridge of Spies. Now, this film I was not looking forward to. I said to Benoit, look, it's the most current release. It's a big release. Let's go see it. But I wasn't looking forward to it. I thought it was going to be the most dull thing that I've seen in a while. And when I went into the cinema, things weren't looking good. The average age of everyone in the cinema was probably 50 years old, and from then, my expectations were so low. But going into it was actually really, really entertaining. The story itself is very, very simple. It's set in the height of the Cold War. Tom Hanks is an insurance lawyer who has been hired or has been chosen by the US to represent a Russian spy that's been captured by the US. It's basically about American citizens looking down on not only this Russian spy who's threatening their way of life, but actually looking down on this American citizen who, as far as they're concerned, is betraying his own country, representing and defending this proven spy. And then at some point, an American soldier is captured by the Russians, and an exchange needs to be made. And so who better to facilitate this than the defender of this Russian spy? So Tom Hanks jets off to East Berlin to try and secure this trade between the Russian agent and the American agents to their respective countries. Now, this film, as expected, didn't have a particularly intriguing plot. However, what really, really made this film was each and every one of the characters. The nuances and the interactions between all of the characters, from Tom Hanks to his little crony, with the Russian embassy representative, even down to Alan Alda and the judge who was presiding over the Russians' case. I mean, every interaction was so human and so entertaining and just made me smile. So, surprisingly, I'm going to give this 4 stars.
Wow, I was not expecting you to go that high. How can you go that high when you say the plot wasn't intriguing? Surely the plot is like one of the first and foremost things you need.
Well, yes, but it's based on a true story, so you can kind of guess how it goes.
What do you mean you can guess how it goes? You mean if you've seen the trailer, you can and it's a Spielberg movie.
Yeah.
You can sort of know where it's going in the end, and I'm not ruining anything here, but things might end happily or they might not, and you can guess which one of the two it's going to be.
America and Russia don't go to war.
Well, they were.
Well,
they were,
Cold War, yeah. But America and Russia don't explode each other's faces with nukes.
They could have had a little surprise Quentin Tarantino fantasy history in the end there.
That's true. But
No, that
it said based on true events. But no, that was fine. And I was actually uplifted at the end. You know, I felt that positive feeling that, you know, everything turned out okay, even if the Russian spy may not have been okay. Once he got in the car. Spoilers.
No, you can't do that. You can't say spoilers after you've just spoiled something. Should we cut that bit out, or should we continue?
We'll see.
No,
we'll see how it works.
So you like the bit characters?
Each of the characters seems so well thought out and portrayed, and the way that they interacted with each other just made the film for me. It really, I was entertained all the way through. I was loving the interactions and the travel of Tom Hanks, like not only in New York, but heading over to East Berlin and seeing how he negotiated with all of the guys. It was great.
Oh, the thing that surprised me the most was I just had a look at the runtime of this thing, and I had no idea it was 2 hours and 21 minutes.
Right? It didn't feel like that at all.
It's a long slog, but it doesn't feel like it. Each scene happens so quickly.
Yeah.
And they got to the point of each scene incredibly quickly. Like, after he's just been assigned to defend the Russian agent, it hard cuts into his wife going, but why are you going to do this?
Yeah, rather than spend a long time setting up, like, should I do this? Should I not? What are the ramifications of this? It's like Tom Hanks goes, well, I'm going to be hated and I'm going to lose. This is great. And then he goes through his wife. He's like, look, I'm thinking about doing this thing. She's like, I don't know if you should. And then in comes Tom Hanks' crony going, hey, we're going to do this case. Isn't it awesome?
And then it ends. It's like the best example of getting in late and leaving early from a scene. However, the bit players that you're saying you like so much,
Yep.
yes, I thought each one of them were very good. But the thing was, they were all very, I don't want to say two-dimensional. They, so they set up each character essentially as having a something,
Yes.
and then it gets flipped on its head later on. So the best example of this I can think of is you've probably seen that moment in the trailer where he's defending a Russian spy and people are turning against him. So Tom Hanks is sitting on the train and there's a lady opposite him. She looks in the newspaper and it says, "This Tom Hanks guy is bad guy, helping Russians." She looks up at him, scowls, and then looks back, trying not to make eye contact again, and he feels like an outcast.
Oh no,
So-
she doesn't look back. They just maintain an awkwardly long stare.
Oh well, yeah.
She just sits there looking at him.
And then later on, you have the reverse of the scene where essentially, is it the same lady?
It's the same lady.
The same lady.
It's
The
so
same lady
dumb.
is sitting opposite him on the train. She looks at the newspaper and it says, "Tom Hanks is good guy now. He helped out Americans and you should be friends."
Yeah, exactly.
Looks up at him and smiles, and they smile at each other.
I think that's a bit of a narrative on tabloids and how the general public is
No, it
sheeps.
wasn't.
Yes, it was. The
It
general
was
public is
just
sheep.
easy.
No, the general public are told what to think through tabloids and media.
That wasn't making a comment on that at all.
I think it was.
No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't making a comment on that. It was saying if you help the Americans, you're not good. If you do help the Americans, you are good. So you should not like him now. Oh, you should like him now. And there's a really simple way of showing that. It was very cheap and easy. And I feel like that's sort of a recurring theme within the film, that there's a character and you set them up. For example, another one, the CIA agent that's helping him out, set him up as a big, powerful something early on, the guy that's sort of in charge of everything. And by the end, he's a little whingy wimp.
He has no power over Tom Hanks. Tom Hanks just does whatever the fuck he wants.
Yeah, and he's sort of, his attitude is sort of, "Oh, come on, I'm in charge here."
Oh, no, you can't. He goes, "No, you shouldn't go back. Scratch that. You won't go back. Scratch that. I forbid you to go back."
Yeah.
And then Tom Hanks says, "I'm going back." So
And then he goes back and he fucks everything up. And the guy's like, "You fucked everything up!"
I thought that was so entertaining.
Yeah, there are great
Like-
moments of humor within the overall
Yeah,
scenes.
it-
And there's really cute moments that Spielberg's so good for.
I think I saw about 4 separate incidents where I looked to you, I giggled, and I looked to you and you were just like,
Well, our favorite actor, Jesse Plemons, is in this. He's the Matt Damon light.
don't say Matt Damon
He's Matt Damon light.
because that suggests that he's actually as decent looking as Matt Damon.
But that's why he's Matt Damon light. He's the Diet Coke of Matt Damon.
He's an ugly version of Matt Damon.
Yeah,
if he's
Matt
any
Damon's
Matt Damon.
uglier brother. He's the guy that was in Breaking Bad, and he was in last week's Black Mass.
He's got
he's
got acne scars and he's red faced and got a pudgy belly.
What are you rating him on Tinder or something? Or what's that matter?
Well, why are you gonna compare him to one of arguably one of the best looking men in Hollywood?
Matt Damon's not that good looking. What is this turned into? What are we doing
I
here?
will find him in the top 50 good looking men, whatever it is. What's that rating scale of sexiest men alive?
The Richter scale? I'm pretty sure it's the Richter scale. It's about how much the men can rock you.
If it's the Richter scale, then this guy probably beats Matt Damon.
Oh, he made a fat joke.
I did.
He's a pilot. He's not supposed to be fat in this one, which was really interesting. But I reckon he was fattening up for Black Mass.
What about those little moments with Tom Hanks where he got his way and he knew that he got his way and he just smiled?
Yeah,
you just
yeah.
had that Tom Hanks grin and you're just yeah. That
Yeah,
was
Tom
awesome.
Hanks was a powerhouse in it.
Yeah.
Both he and his character knew what they were doing, and when they were backed into a corner, his character sort of outwitted the other guy, which is really cool to see. So some of the coolest moments for me were the film noir style bits where he's being followed down the street, and in a dorky way he tries to get out of it, and then that doesn't work. So then he turns into the lawyer that he is, and he talks his way out of it and walks away, which is fantastic. It was great. There was one bit later in the film that was not milked, I thought. Not ruining anything, but he gets taken by the Russians. And nothing happens. He gets released. In fact, it happens off screen.
He spends a night in
Lockup.
in their jail, in the East Berlin jail.
And I was thinking, man, that's where the film's going to get going. I mean, imagine an American lawyer trying to talk his way out of Berlin. That would be great. But no, it just happened off screen. And I thought that was a really interesting choice.
They were making sure not to lose what the film is about, really.
But I still wanted to see that.
I think there was enough in this film that you could do without that. We were in there for 2 hours 20.
But it's about him talking his way out of stuff. That's what it's about. Like,
Well, no, it's more about his relationship with this Russian spy who he respects as
as a human.
As a human and as a representative of another country. Like, even though they're on opposing sides, they find themselves respecting one another and supporting each other, which is a really heartfelt story, I think. And just the differences between the two of them, like they did the callback, like the 2-time callback of the joke with, "Aren't you worried?" He goes, "Would it help?"
And they did it 3 times.
Yeah,
and
the third time you were just like, "Yeah, I get it." But like the first 2, I thought were
they
delivered
nailed it.
really well.
Yeah, everyone in the audience giggled.
Yeah.
But that's like the film. It's like a little bit too neat. Everything's a little too organized.
Well, you would think it would be, considering how much, how Steven Spielberg has, you would hope, refined his art over his immense career.
It has been refined for years.
Exactly.
He knows his stuff.
He's put out a lot of decent films, and you would think that, as he progresses, he learns a bit more how to streamline the storytelling and how to make it a bit more efficient. And I think that this was very, very well-paced, well refined, and ultimately a very, very entertaining true story film, which I was so surprised.
I'm really surprised that you're having this opinion. I'm sort of pleased that you're having this opinion.
Because out of all of our other reviews, I'm always the lowest. I'm just like, fuck that film. That film was shit. Because out of every single one, like, we're at episode 8 now, but it's out of every single one that we've done, I've always been the lower reviewer, and I've always been
What
the
are
one
you
that's
saying?
been...
I'm going to give this one a lower ranking?
I think this time you will.
I haven't. Now, I haven't said too much bad about this film so far.
Yeah, I'm waiting for it.
Yeah, I don't have a lot. I'm gonna do my ranking scale of starting at 2.5. Starting with an average film.
Okay.
And the staging, the blocking, the cinematography were great. They really used the anamorphic look in this film incredibly. There were headlights everywhere. They were like blurring all over the place, and they used lens flares appropriately. Basically, every camera angle moved.
Yep.
Every single shot either drifted in or drifted around or used the space properly. There were great scenes between him and the Russian spy that could have just been a close-up and a reverse close-up.
Just these static, stagnant, boring shots.
Yes. And this did not do that. And the pace of the scenes moved along incredibly quickly. I wasn't bored per se, but I did feel like everything was too neat.
You wanted some grit?
I wanted some grit. Halfway through the film, when, spoiler territory, where the American pilot goes down in Russia, I was very surprised to see in this film that there was some torture. And it was sleep deprivation torture. That was impressive and awesome and cool. But it didn't go anywhere. You know what I mean? He was fine by the end. It was the Spielberg problem of, despite the fact that you think the characters die, they come over the hill and they hug each other like at the end of the War of the Worlds.
Well, he looked at pretty worse for wear at the end of it. And you don't know if he gave in or not. That was open-ended.
Yeah, actually, that's a good point. I hadn't thought about that.
Like, it
Whether
wasn't
he
shown.
divulged secrets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
okay,
and he
that's a
was
good
left.
one.
He was. You remember, towards the end, he was left with a pad of paper in a lit room and a pen,
Yeah, okay.
possibly
Okay.
writing down all the secrets. He was just like, okay, I can't take it anymore.
That's a good point. Yeah, maybe he did break.
Yeah, that's
And
the thing.
the
like,
Russian guy didn't break.
yeah, and Tom Hanks said to him, like when the American guy comes in, he goes, "Don't worry, I held out. I didn't break. I didn't tell him anything. I gave him nothing." And Tom Hanks just says,
Doesn't matter. Who cares?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You know what you did. And then you look at his face. I don't know if you were watching it, but you look at his face afterwards. He's just staring straight ahead, just kind of like,
What did I do?
I fucked up. I fucked up.
If I held out for another few days, I would have been fine.
Yeah.
One thing I didn't like about the film, and it was just a weird choice, was Tom Hanks getting sick. He
The
got
cold.
yeah,
And then it transferred kind of to the CIA agent.
yeah, and it didn't knock him out for good. It was a setup without much of a resolve.
Well,
My complaint is that too much of this film was too neat. That bit felt just unnecessary and useless. The only thing it seemed to do for me in the film was show a passage of time. it showed him getting slightly sicker, so we knew it was a few days later.
Yeah.
I imagine that he was going to have to go to the big trade and was going to be super sick, or he wasn't going to be able to go to the trade and someone else was going to go. And
I think there are just
like-
little nuances to this film that are just sort of an addition to try and flesh, like not try and flesh out, but a little additions to be a little bit more human. Because if he gets his coat stolen in Berlin in the middle of winter with snow around, and
but he was
doesn't
already
get
sick before that.
No, he wasn't.
Yeah, he was. He was sniffling on the way over and coughing.
No, it was once he lost his coat that he got sick.
No. Before he lost his coat, he was in the. Remember, he lands and he's in the car with like the 5 of them. And he's like, "Can you turn the heat up? It's real cold."
Yeah, that was just saying it was cold.
No, that's a precursor to him getting sick. He's starting to get sick. Like, yeah, that would have made sense if he lost the coat and the next scene he's sick, and then he gets better.
That's
after
what
that.
it was. Like, he asked him to turn up the heat because he came from hot America to Berlin and he wasn't used to the cold. That's what it was.
No, it was him getting sick already. It was just a weird choice. Like, I don't know why it was in the film. It didn't add anything to it. It just
I think it was just a little nuance to make him, one, more human, and two, maybe to help the passage of time. But to be honest, there was another thing that was in there for no reason and came to no avail.
What was that?
The projected relationship between Tom Hanks's associate, his sidekick, and Tom Hanks's daughter.
Yeah. Okay. So
At the very start of the film,
his daughter gets stood up on a date. She sits down at the table.
Well, before that.
What?
So before that, Tom Hanks says, "Well, I've got this case. I'm going to need your help getting all the stuff together."
Oh yeah, he says I got a date tonight.
Yeah, he says,
I can blow her up.
I've got dinner. No. He says, I've got dinner. I've got dinner plans. And then Tom Hanks just looks at him.
And then he chooses to blow it off. Yeah.
He's just like, no,
So,
I can
and
do
the
it.
implication is that he blew off Tom Hanks's daughter.
Yeah.
And then she was all cranky, and he came, and the
Tom Hanks
young guy
invited him
came
around.
around for dinner, and so they could work on the case.
Yeah.
That never resolved itself, did it?
That was it.
It was never like, stay away from my daughter.
You didn't even look at the
It was
associate
never-
again.
or the daughter again, really.
Or
She
the
was in
daughter.
she was in the end there, but yeah. Once again, why?
It was
just like just a cute little moment and it felt like there were a few of those. Like, he got mugged by the guys when he first got into Berlin,
yeah,
so they could take his jacket.
and then send him on
Why?
his way. Well,
It was
it's
sort
a
of a
good
power play.
American jacket.
No, it was like a power play from the spies to say, we know where you are, and we have people everywhere. But once again, never really went anywhere. They never used that knowledge or that power again.
It was just a little nuance. I think this film is filled with nuances.
So I'm starting at my 2.5 and going up a little bit just because the staging, the blocking, and everything was beautiful about the film.
Yep.
But I'm failing to get a little bit more. You know what I mean? Can you try and convince me to go up from 3 stars any higher to your 4 stars? Because there's not a lot else in it for me. You know what I mean? I've seen this film once and I don't want to see it again. I think I got everything out of it on the first view.
Yes.
Try and convince me that it's a better film.
Okay. Well, I don't think it's necessarily, a film above 3 stars needs to be something that you want to watch again and again and again.
Yes, it does.
No, it doesn't.
You can't say 4 stars, watch it once and you're done. Oh, here we go. Listen to Radiohead's album. It's amazing. It's life-changing. Only listen to it once. They'll be fine. No, you got to listen to that stuff again and again and again and again.
I don't think you could compare movies to music.
Yeah, you can. They're both art forms. They're both audio with some little bit of visual, he says, trailing off and losing his point. No, you can compare the two.
I don't know about that.
What was I trying to argue? I forgot what I was trying to argue.
I forgot. So I think that you can gain a broader sense of understanding of music.
Oh, what I was trying to say was
than film.
Do I want to see this film again? No, but if I don't want to see this film again, then how can it be so high? How can it be 4 stars?
Well, I think that there is very little to fault in this film. I think that the characters themselves were outstanding, and the interactions between them, even just the interaction on the bridge between your favorite actor / character.
Jesse Plemons, who we
And-
didn't quite get to this before. So he's the guy that looks a little bit like Matt Damon, or Matt Damon's slightly uglier brother, I will concede. Anyway, he's been in a couple of films recently. He was in Black Mass and he was in Breaking Bad. Anyway, he's hilarious. And he's just got this one little scene where he's on the bridge and his entire job is to identify the other guy. And he just throws his hand up and goes, "Hey, Murph."
No. And then he looks over at the CIA guy and Tom Hanks and goes, "Yeah, that's him."
And that's it. That was his job.
Yeah.
Good work, Jesse Plemons.
That was a really good moment. I'm laughing about it now, just thinking and remembering it.
Another good example of like those cute little moments that happen in the film.
And like each moment that I've reenacted and like reenacted like actually during the podcast, and also brought your memory back to you've smiled, you've giggled, you've remembered it
very
fondly.
good little moments.
Yeah,
But just like
you don't think the story is well presented and well tied up at the end? You don't think that it leaves
I
enough?
thought it was a little bit too tied up.
No, but you don't think
wrapped up in a neat little package.
Well, not necessarily, because there was still some stuff that was open to interpretation, such as whether the American POW broke or not, and whether the Russians ended up like shooting their spy that got caught in America just because they thought that he'd cracked, and had switched to the American
side. It does in the
side.
titles at the end there explain what happened to him, that he's living with his actual wife and daughter and stuff.
Yeah.
So it does give you that resolve there.
Mm-hmm.
But
And that little fact at the end where Tom Hanks's character ended up doing like a lot of negotiating for the American government.
and he was trying to save 1,000 refugees.
1,100.
And he saved like 3,000.
9,000.
Was it 9,000?
9,000. He went
Oh,
from
right.
1,100 that he was aiming, like men that he was aiming to free, and he ended up freeing 9,300 or something men, women, and children.
Yeah.
It
Which is
just
good
goes
because
to
it's
show
just
that
like
he's just-
so stubborn.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
it doesn't matter. Yeah, which is his character. Like if he gets pushed into a corner, he gets stubborn and walks out of there and goes, "Nope, not doing this," which is good. Great character.
Yeah. It's a character that you can really get on side and really root for, which I think is incredibly important for a story like this that is all about the main character trying to achieve a big end, a massive end game that he's going for. And you really want him to win and you're rooting for him to be successful. You want him to be able to get that American POW back, but you also want him to get his way and get that second American student who's been taken, and captured.
One thing that I wanted to ask you in particular.
Yes?
You quite often have an anti-American agenda when
I
watching
do.
films.
I do. I really do. I hate it when. All right, so
When
to
in
clarify,
Spider-Man, he stands in front of an American flag for no particular reason.
exactly.
But that seems to grate on you and rub up you the wrong way.
It does.
Michael Bay films where there's like 17 different American flags in them in the background for no particular reason.
To clarify for listeners, it's Battlefield LA is a really, really good example of, instead of being, I was expecting an alien film with Marines in it. It was a Marine film with aliens. So it was more about, check out how awesome and amazing the US Marines are, because they're the only military A-grade class that we have in the world. The Marines are the best soldiers in the world. Sort of thing. I hate it when Americans portray themselves to be the best at what they do and to basically toot their own horn and blow smoke up their own asses. That's what it is. That's what grates on me, yeah? Say America's so great.
Don't you think that they did that in this film?
No.
Just a little bit? Well,
Because
in the end
they
it got a little-
represented a Russian spy as an incredibly respectful and an awesome character, an awesome dude.
But also the Americans didn't torture their POW, but
Yes,
the Russians did.
that's true. That was, but
Which I thought was, I mean, I didn't think it was, but I thought you would have interpreted that as them going, well, the Americans are better because they were better people and they didn't do anything, and they represented it, and they facilitated the swap, whereas the Russians were just sort of shown as the bad guys.
I wouldn't say they were shown as bad guys. Just that they did things differently, which I'm okay with, because that's true. They they at that time especially did things a lot differently. That moment where the American POW was woken up with a splash, a bucket of water to the face, and then it switches to the Russian POW or the Russian spy that's just like peacefully asleep in the American bed, and then the guy just goes, excuse me, sir. Oh, yeah.
You gotta come with me now. Come with me. We're going on a
Okay.
plane. Come with me.
Your plane, you say? No, it was...
Which also might have been a function of the fact that the Russian dude was a bit older.
Yes.
And they didn't exactly want to be beating on an old man, but they could water torture a young soldier
Yeah.
for information, and he'll be fine.
Yeah.
He'll heal, but the old dude might not.
I think, I think that was, while a little bit like...
Oh, and they weren't 100% sure that the Russian dude was a spy, but the American kid was.
Yeah.
Like, he landed from a plane
in a U.S. military uniform.
Yeah, so, there's some gray areas there.
Yeah.
But interestingly, that didn't grate on you. For
No.
a person that doesn't like American, what would seem to be
Propaganda.
propaganda films, but aren't. Because it always annoys me when it annoys you. Like, I don't care. Like, it's
And
an
then
American
when I
film that's
point
going
it
to have
out, you get annoyed.
No, I get
Or
annoyed.
you get annoyed at me getting annoyed.
I get annoyed at you for pointing it out. I'm like, no, it's just a film set in America, and yes, they're going to have the American military in it.
It's just something that grates on me. And look, if I'm going to point it out, if I think it's a problem, if I think, for example, the French military are like, oh, check out how great the French are and everyone else is shit, that's going to annoy me too. It's basically...
But of course you're going to portray your heroes as better than the other guys.
But not when it's unnecessary. Like, sure, it's set in America, then have the American military, but don't be like, these are the most elite soldiers in the entire world. Like, the Russian special...
It's just interesting that it didn't grate on you in this one, which
Russian
means the
special
film
forces.
did step on a fine line, and it sort of
I think it
worked
walks
for
the
you.
fine line. Yeah, I think
Which
it
is
walks the
interesting.
fine line.
I thought of all people it wouldn't work for you, but that's interesting that it did.
Yeah.
What didn't work for you?
Why isn't it 5 stars?
Yeah. What
what-
have you pulled some stars off for?
It wasn't anything revolutionary. It wasn't something that I sort of stood back in awe of, where I thought this is a great film. I couldn't stand back and say that because look, it was a solid film and had some great characters and incredibly entertaining moments in this film that really had me going for that. As you pointed out, 2 hours and 20 minutes, and it felt like an hour and a half. But it doesn't get 5 because it's not. It was restricted by that based on a true story aspect, and I think it was just the overall plot. It didn't blow my mind.
If this was on TV, you'd stay. You wouldn't switch away because it's just that sort of film. It's like, once you're in, you're like, I wonder what happens here. But the thing is, once it's over, it's over. It's all wrapped up in a neat little package. There's nothing really to take away from it.
You don't really want to go back to it. You're just like, well, that's done. I enjoyed it.
It's good.
Let's move on.
It's solid, but it's not amazing. It's not right home about, and I'm going to stick with my 3 stars.
I would recommend that even though I looked around at our audience. It was like...
And I felt like the young teenager that was messing stuff up in the audience. I didn't want them to go home and go, some rapscallion was ruining my movie this evening.
And then at the start of the film, just as like the sound was rolling in and the credits were coming up of all the different studios that worked on it, we just heard all this like...
And the sound of walking canes being unsheathed.
like dentures.
I felt bad when I laughed. Like, there are a few times I went, ha! In the movie. And I felt bad afterwards. Like, oh, sorry, I was reacting. My bad.
Let's just say the smell of menthol and senility was really, really strong. But I went in
actually, there's a good rating scale. Would you take your grandma to this film? Absolutely.
Abso-friggin-lutely.
This is a grandma film. You need to take your grandma on a date. This is it. This is the one to take it to this week. It's that Tom Hanks. He was so lovely, and the way he saved those people. And everyone, that was a good time.
Good choice, Benoit.
Yeah,
Lovely. It was
that's
a
what you'd
lovely
say.
movie.
In fact, I'll take my grandma to this, and I'll listen to some music at the same time. 3 stars from me.